public comment on items not on the agenda before we begin?
I will just jump in and add that last night, in a stroke of unanimity, the Missoula City Council unanimously passed a resolution in support of our establishment of the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority and efforts to restore passenger rail service to southern Montana.
That is just so great.
There it is, all aboard.
And I'm not joking, Dave. I think the swag needs to happen soon. I mean, a hat and hoodies to just continue this momentum of intensity and enthusiasm. Like it needs wearable.
This is a swag-rich opportunity, and I think the train is loaded and headed this way.
There you go. That's great. Well, great work. Continued great work. Really exciting. Okay, so our in terms of action items, our first presenter is Adrienne Beck.
Good morning, Commissioners. What you have before you is a one-year lease agreement with Sterling Commercial Management, LLC. This is for a one-year lease for the Health Department to utilize the facility out there, which is the old Garden City warehouse, as a testing location for COVID-19. Currently, their operations are based out of the fairgrounds, but summer heat being the most immediate need, but then also looking to the future for winter operations. This facility provides kind of the climate that they need for year-round access for the nurses to be able to continue with their testing activities. So Brian West is on the phone. There's been a lot of back and forth to get this lease together. I want to thank him for all of his diligence in helping us move quickly to get this property secured for the health department. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a just basic question. Is this just past Costco? I'm not familiar with where this is at or what this used to be.
So this is it's just this side of the airport on Flynn Lane, very close to the intersection with Highway 10.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
Juan, I'm just going to say it again. You're just so country. Don't know this stuff. All right.
We'll send you a pin on Onyx Maps. How about
that? Okay.
Hey, Adrienne, how many square feet are we talking about?
Oh, you would ask me a question like that I wish I could answer.
It's quite a big building.
It is a large building that will facilitate, that will allow for, there's 7 office spaces there, so they'll be able to move a lot of their scheduling activities there, as well as provide kind of the office space that the nurses working at the testing site are going to need. It has a large bay that will allow for the drive-in component or the drive-through component to remain, which was one of their primary features that they were looking for.
Do you think that this will work in winter as well?
Yes.
I mean, that's the idea with this long lease.
They, the health department testing branch and some of their logistics folks did a pretty exhaustive search of available buildings within kind of the commercial as well as any kind of government-owned facilities. We looked at some of the schools that MCPS is not using, but all of them, including the fairgrounds, required some infrastructure to be able to kind of continue to support the operations as they're doing them today, which having the patient remain in their vehicle is the safest option for the nurses. It's the minimal exposure.
Yeah, great. I just wanted to, obviously with a year lease was kind of a dumb question, but I just wanted to hear it said out loud for our friends in the media that we're thinking about the winter here.
Yeah, the primary impetus to move from the fairgrounds was the climate conditions and thinking about all seasons and finding a facility that could withstand and be appropriate for all seasons.
Juan, what did you say on square feet?
Oh, Ann Hughes typed in there that it's approximately 10,000 square feet. Great,
that's a sizable structure.
And do we have to do anything different with like traffic, or is there that's all easily handled in this area?
Yeah, so the safety team from the health department is going out today to do a walkthrough, but they have already kind of established some traffic flow and feel like the facility will handle that very well.
Okay. Awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. I would move that we approve the 1-year lease.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thank you, Adrian, for solving this problem.
Thank you.
And is this all reimbursable, or where's the money coming from again?
So we believe this to be a FEMA eligible reimbursable cost. We've been having some correspondence as early as this morning that we're kind of doing a back and forth with FEMA around testing activities to making sure that they're eligible. But either way, it will have a federal funding source, whether it's through the CDC, FEMA, or CARES Act.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Eric, you're up next.
All right, so similar to our cost share program for our dust abatement, where residents can buy materials at our cost, and then we provide the labor and equipment to apply that, we have a similar program for more long-term improvements, such as the one that's been proposed here. David and Heidi Boggs were looking for solutions to their dust problem, and I offered up several solutions, one of which was dust abatement and the other being paving for a hard surface as a one-time long-lasting improvement. And given the two costs, they opted to go ahead and agree to purchase the asphalt. So this is an existing county maintained road, so that's why we can extend this offer to them, and it is a project that would extend similar infrastructure in the area, so we can tap into the existing asphalt just south of Toby Way on Cody Lane, and we will pave 500 feet that will get past their driveway, give them some relief from dust, and give them a good road surface to their driveway. And it's as always a little bit of a help to us to have hard surface. So we would recommend that the agreement be signed so that we can perform this work for the bogs.
Fantastic.
Seems like a pretty good price.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's asphalt at our cost, so it's pretty easy for them, we think, and it's more infrastructure that we can't or normally wouldn't provide for a new asphalt surface. So yeah, it's a mutually beneficial program.
Great. I motion to approve to sign the memorandum agreement with David and Heidi Boggs. Thanks for making this happen.
Yeah, second.
Sure.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot. Thanks, Eric. Kate has come all the way over from the health department.
Hi, good morning. What you have here is a renewal, a 2-year contract renewal with the city, between the City County Health Department and the City of Missoula, to provide our diabetes prevention program to employees and their dependents. So this is basically the same agreement that I presented to you 2 weeks ago or so for the county. It's just the kind of, I call it our sister agreement with the city. So our diabetes prevention program is our 26 class lifestyle change course, and this offers it to city employees, so it's covered by their health insurance. And I can provide more details, but since I just talked in depth about this a couple weeks ago, I don't know that I need to share all the details again. But please let me know. I'm happy to talk more about it.
Well, how many folks participate in it?
From the city?
Yeah.
Specifically, unfortunately, very few. That's something that we're working on. I think there was about 4 or 5 in the past year that have participated, and so we're really working with. There's a new individual over there, Mike at the city, who has taken over kind of heading up this contract, and hopefully working through HR, we can do some more recruiting of city employees and really market this program. It is a commitment. It's a year-long commitment, and so it is hard for people to commit to that. But now that we're offering it virtually due to COVID, we're hoping that both city and county employees could participate more. So moving forward, we really are hoping to get more city employees involved. Thanks. Mostly it's a nice option, and it shows support of employee wellness to have this as an option for employees to have covered by the insurance program.
Yeah.
All right, I would move that we approve the agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kate.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next up is the indomitable Chantel Gaynor.
Oops, unmute.
With some stop action photography there.
I think we can hear you, Chantel, right?
Can you hear me? I'm
Now
talking.
we can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My computer's being very slow on my end and glitching back and forth, so I'm glad you can hear me.
Yeah.
So the what I'm bringing forward today is a grant document for you to sign. It's accepting an award from the Board of Crime Control. It's to help with COVID related needs. We partnered with the YWCA and the Sheriff's Department for a total of just over $70,000, which will be essentially split in thirds. This will help pay for protective barriers, additional cleaning, masks for every client, some laptops for the Sheriff's Department, and help the YWCA have the shelter be COVID safe, and let them get some new furniture in that's antibacterial, antimicrobial, antiviral. It's somehow in the fabric of the chairs. So we have 12 months to spend the money, and happily the Board of Crime Control is making it fairly easy, where they're only going to want one report at the end of what did we do with the money.
Great.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, well then I motion to accept this grant.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Just out of curiosity, the way my face appears to be frozen, is it ridiculous for you all too, or is it just me?
Now you're moving, so.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Okay. Next, we have two standard employment agreements. They're good with a little cumin and roasted salt. Standard employment agreements with PAC for partnership, PCH. So how do we want to handle this?
Both at once?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'd move that we approve items 5 and 6.
Excellent.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. These poor people can begin their work. Okay. Next up, some correspondence.
Okay. Oh, forgive me, I don't have the agenda directly in front of me. Are we on the letter
Brad,
to the
this
governor?
is you on the letter to the governor about the all male election.
Absolutely. So during the last election advisory committee meeting, we discussed the importance of planning for the upcoming November election. We discussed the impacts of COVID-19, and we worked closely with Allison in the communications department to draft up a letter to the governor asking him specifically to request that a decision is made soon so that we can help start planning and notifying voters of what will be upcoming for the November election. In the letter, it does list specifically concerns about COVID-19 with our polling places, election judges, and higher risk demographics. It also discussed the additional need for training and possibility of consolidating polling places for the November election because of the reopening of school districts and the inability to use multiple locations that we currently use as polling locations. So with all of these factors in mind, we had worked to draft a letter on your behalf, reaching out to the governor's office directly to state that we would like them to make a decision as soon as possible so that we can plan, be cost effective towards taxpayers, and help make sure that we're notifying voters of what we are doing in November. questions? Yeah.
My computer's slow, so I'm not getting over to the letter, but what does soon mean to you? Is there a date in there, or what do we?
So there isn't a date. We've been working with the lobbyists from the Association of Clerk and Recorders, as well as the Association of Counties. And the discussion has been that the governor will likely make a decision at the end of August. Come the end of August, we'll have to have trained additional election judges. This is a big concern because we would work on online training. We do pay for our election judge training, and that's an additional cost. If we go to an all-male election, we would not utilize all of our judges. So that becomes twofold. We've spent money for something we're not going to use, and it is really hard to recruit judges in the future. When you say, we really need you, and they say, yes, just like you did for November of 2020 when you didn't call me to work.
So Bradley, at one point in time, I recall there being some discussion of an August 10th date. What would that pertain to?
I remember that date as well.
So August 10th is the last day that a issue can be placed on the ballot. So that starts our certification and our standard planning of 90 days before an election. We are not specifically stating August 10th because we're hoping we can get a decision before then, if at all possible. Now, they have Chantel drafted a letter from all of the clerk and recorders and election administrators that's going out, mirroring these same issues statewide, but a specific request from the Board of County Commissioners.
So I guess, Bradley, my question would be, do we include the August 10th date as some target by which, I mean, the sooner the better, as in next week would be great, but if we feel like we don't want this strung out till the end of August, would it be good to put an actual date in here that we want the governor to respond by?
Yeah, we could absolutely. It ends with, thank you for your continued leadership on this unprecedented pandemic. We look forward to hearing your decision on the upcoming election. Knowing by August 10th would really help plan for our elections. You know, just wrap it up with that date and a specific request. Ann?
Hi guys, the third paragraph starts with, it is imperative that this decision be made as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But it might be nice to insert it. I hear where you're coming from, Dave. It might be nice to put a date in there to assist.
Could we simply say as soon as possible and no later, ideally no later than August 10th or something like that?
Yeah. Well, and I think we can rework it a little too to make it more clear that if he does wait till the end of August, we will have trained all these judges by then and it will, you know, gone to waste. So yeah, we can rework that too, just to make that point more clear.
Great, thank you.
Bradley, is there a dollar value associated with the judge's time and the training time and all of that? I mean, can we demonstrate that this is a way not to waste money by going quickly?
I could crunch those numbers on what we would do as a potential, because we would need about 300 additional judges, and each of them are trained and paid at a flat rate of $25. And that is for the basic training. There would be additional training needed for some managers, so I can definitely crunch those numbers to get them for you, and it won't take me very long at all. I just haven't pulled it specifically.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah, thanks, Allison and Ann.
Yes. Okay, our next letter. This is to our senators and our House representatives person regarding extending the CARES Act deadline.
Thanks, Jeff. I think I spoke a little bit about the letter I attached to the staff sharing up in Senator Daines' office, and then Marilyn Marler as well. I outlined the number of things that they weren't paying for that the Treasury guidance allowed for, which included payroll and benefit expenses to 911 personnel, payroll and benefit expenses to detention center deputies, hazard pay, benefit expenses associated with all payroll expenses for all classes of employees deemed eligible by the Treasury Department for hours worked, regarding COVID-19. 2/3 of their time had to be spent there. Missoula Aging Services was denied a reimbursement request for increased costs associated with bringing meals to our most vulnerable citizens. And there's a line in the Treasury guidance that speaks exactly to that point, and they just absolutely ignored it. And let's see. Then okay. Oh, and then the meals, the denial of meals for the health department, the nurses working extra hours on the call center and with the contact tracing, that was denied. But for the EOC, it was approved through FEMA. And then I talked about the elections department because we were allowed to apply for money for the primary election for mail-in ballots, to the postage for the mail-in ballots, but we were specifically told we could not apply for the fall election. Well, Bradley will need to start printing envelopes fairly shortly if we're going to do the mail-in ballot, and I'd like to know if we can get that, but they've specifically said, no, you cannot apply for that. And the pot of money that it came out of for the primaries was from the Department of Administration. It came through some elections, some federal elections money. So there's nothing in the CARES Act that denies that, and I don't know why they're doing that. Yeah, here, right out of the guidance. Expenditures for food delivery to residents, including, for example, senior citizens and other vulnerable populations, to enable compliance with COVID-19 public health.
There we go.
That's pretty ambitious.
A lot of gray area in there.
Yeah, it's right on point. What's
the definition of meal?
I'm going to talk a little bit about the process we've gone through. I mean, it's been time consuming, duplicative, and not required, in my opinion, in many cases. We were given the spreadsheet on June 5th. We got it out by the 12th with over 200 pages of detailed backup, invoices, timesheets, you name it, and we put it in each category they had on the spreadsheet. They came back and said that they wanted us to then create a spreadsheet which provided a separate index for those invoices that tied it back to their original spreadsheet. So we did that. And about a week after that, they asked for narratives, written narratives for all the expenditures that they had questions on. So we're busily writing narratives now for them. And then the final straw, in my opinion, was now they would like us to take reports from our accounting system, generate them to them, but then extract the expenditures in each of the categories within our line items, which don't match up with their line items. So we're doing a complete reversal so they can see that the expenditures were actually made. What do they think? I'm falsifying expenditures just to get CARES money? It's just absolutely insane. So those are the things I detailed in there, and then I listed the Treasury guidance, which spoke to the issues that I thought they're crossing the line on.
Well, anyone who has lefty written on his shirt is obviously suspect. So.
That's written in red too. I don't
know. That's what you said.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It's my bowling shirt from the old days.
Hey, Andrew, there's a separate letter here listed to Senators Tester Daines and Representative Gianforte regarding extending the CARES Act deadline. Is that a separate piece of correspondence from what you just referenced that you sent to Representative Marler?
Yeah, it is. I did not send that letter. I'm not sure who did.
That Chris Lounsbury wrote that letter, so that is a separate letter that's coming that Chris produced.
I don't see it attached, Annie. Is it not written yet, or?
It is written. I didn't realize he did not have it attached, so I will send it out to you guys right now.
Thanks.
That's pretty much all I had on that topic.
Is Annie raising her hand?
I think she did before she just spoke.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Andrew.
You bet.
Andrew, yeah. And so, I'm sorry, Andrew, this is going to Livers, or who does this land with?
Marilyn Marler asked for the document to, she said she was meeting with Livers, who I mentioned was shocked that we hadn't gotten any money. And then also went to Sharon, a staff member in Senator Daines' office, and she responded that she'd shared it with DC and she would be calling this week, and they were very interested in helping.
Are there other local delegates that should also receive this letter?
That's your call. Whatever
I don't know.
I mean,
I have no idea.
give it. We could provide it to everyone who was on that call the other day with our local legislators.
Sure. I'd be happy.
Yeah. So just a little background. Yesterday, Marilyn reached out to me via text saying, have you guys still not received any money? And I said, no. And then she was, well, I think maybe I can help. Put me in touch with Andrew. So we did this via text yesterday.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I would be happy to share it with as many folks as you guys think it is useful. Because the more people that know this, I think would be beneficial.
I'm with you on our whole delegation. Even
I'm
if they're
guessing
going to be as active as Marilyn is, they should know what's going on.
Yeah.
Marilyn wanted it sent to her Gmail address. Do we have addresses for email addresses for
I have a list of the folks who participated in that call last week with you. I'll get it to Andrew. I'll send it to you and Annie so you can share this letter with all of those folks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll get it done.
Thanks, Andrew.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
So, Jerry, you've been waiting patiently for this discussion item on the contract with A&E Architects for construction drawings for the Exploration Center.
Yes, I just really wanted to update the county commissioners where we are. When the virus hit, it really threw our fundraising in the middle of nowhere. So we've gone through some reorganization and are back on track. The uncertainty that we really felt with a lot of our potential donors has kind of declined. The stock market has kind of rebounded in many ways. So the last couple of weeks, things have really moved forward in a much more positive way. We still would like to and still plan to target to start building next spring. And so the contract with A&E is to do the construction drawings that goes to Jackson and get their price on what it is to put that up. We've had a lot of discussion, particularly with leads. How far do we go into leads? And let me tell you, it is hard to get a cost estimate on leads, but I got some numbers from both Jackson and A&E, and where we are today is basically to pursue leads from an equipment or whatever we can, but we dropped the counting of everything that would give us a plaque. What we'd really like to do is probably become a little more focused on educational efforts, on helping the public become more oriented on the green side of the world, I guess I'll call it, and work with the electric co-ops in the power companies and trying to move a little more this direction. So we do have some interest there. So I'd like to at least appraise the commissioners and see what kind of input they have for what we're doing.
Jerry, have you looked into some solar panels on the roof?
Yes, and that is part of the equipment, is to have some solar panels as part of this. Yes.
Do you know, I guess you'd have to work with Diana on this, but to apply for a USB grant through Northwestern to help cover the cost of some of those panels?
Yes, we've probably not specifically on that, but we have had some communication with Diane, and she's offered to help in putting things together. So
Great. Yeah, I mean, she's really well versed in this, but this is a great candidate for a USB grant, and given the size of the array you would need, it would totally fit with what the goals of the program are, and like be a really strong candidate, especially given the highly public nature of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I think it should be it would be an attractive proposal to Northwestern.
Okay. Yeah.
So Jerry, again, is it due to cost that we would not seek LEED certification?
Yes, and I wished I had a better answer to know all the costs that we're going to go through. Because right now the hard numbers are right in front of you from A&E, and then we'll get Jackson's numbers based on those plans.
It'd be kind of interesting to know what are the things you're doing or not doing that lead to that certification or not certification.
Yeah, well, the big issue I guess we struggled with, and I really did struggle to how do we do this, and I have to admit I was getting different numbers, and Larry Farnes with some help, but he had higher numbers than what they gone through in the courthouse, and we still have some unknowns as far as the amount of money we're going to be able to fundraise, but we're still moving that direction.
I mean,
Jason has his hand up.
Hi there. I just want to shed a little bit of light on that just for your consideration. So the county policy, of course, instructs us to try and design and build towards LEED whenever feasibly or financially possible, which I believe Jerry is doing here. It doesn't specifically require the certification. And I think the thing to keep in mind with a certification is even if you build something to a LEED standard, there is quite a bit extra cost to receive the certification. So even if the energy consumption and those things are identical, you do pay quite a bit extra because you have to have that certified by an external entity. And that's something that we experienced in the courthouse. So I'm not, advocating either way, but I do believe you can still build to a lot of those standards. And if it becomes financially infeasible, not necessarily pursue the certification if it's just outside of your reach. So just something to understand about LEED and how that works.
Thanks, Jason. I'm glad to know that. And yeah, it sounds like a good place where we can save some money if we could build to those certifications, but not spend the extra money on getting certified. I mean, I feel like what really matters is that we did it right.
And again, just I'm trying to tease out of this attached document what exactly would be, and maybe you don't know this, Jerry, what are we talking about by way of order of magnitude of what those certification costs would be? Because I agree with Josh that at the end of the day, what we absolutely want is that we are achieving our goals of reducing our carbon footprint and energy conservation, whether it's officially certified or not. But it would be helpful to know a ballpark of, I mean, what are we talking? $10,000, $100,000?
Yeah.
More than both.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys, I'm thinking, we can make our own plaque. We can say on the plaque, we made this commitment to get to clean energy by 2030, and these are the steps we've taken, and this is what it looks like. And, we don't need the LEED plaque. We can do our own education. And along the lines of that education, there was a sword I was going to fall on in this. It would be on the solar panels. Like, given that this is going to be so public, I feel like we really need to do that.
Yeah, this is Dave Wall. So I talked with Paul over at A&E and also the folks over at Jackson Contracting, just to try and get some idea of what the cost was on actual LEED certification. And a lot of that has to do with basically filling out paperwork and checking to make sure that everything we're saying we're doing has been done, and then sending that to the correct agencies. A&E's estimate was about $70,000. Jackson's would be considerably more than that. I really think it'd be at least $250,000 solely for certifying it, and that's over and above using all the same materials that we would have to use, including the solar panels. Yeah, so that's why Yeah, it's very, very high. It reminds me of, in a way, of certifying organic food. You know, if you go to the farmer's market, you know it's going to be organic, but it may not be certified. But what matters is that it is. And I think, and this is why Jerry did talk about the educational component and wanting to fund the educational component, because, yeah, I think as leaders in this area, the certification is not so important as letting the community know what we've done. And it reminds me, do you all remember at the time it was Missoula Federal Credit Union, they had a branch on Russell that was built to these green standards. And I went in there and they had signs all over the place saying, we used cork here instead of such and so because it does this, and this is recycled glass because of this. It was just all over the place. And it was really impressive. And I don't know if it was certified or not. I have no idea, but I know it was built well. So I think something like that would make a difference.
Yeah,
we can come up with our own tip of the spear certification.
Given that this is an educational building, the kind of signage that Dave Wall was describing about would meet the mission of the building, and we could take 1/5 of what we'd be spending on certification, and that could be our contribution if we get the USB grant from Northwestern to a really good-sized solar array.
Do we miss out on any funding opportunities or assistance if it's not LEED?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so, no.
The other thing I would add in the example of the courthouse LEED certification is the amount of staff time, of worker time spent doing the work to document compliance with meeting the standards. So for example, we diverted a certain amount of material from the landfill, but in order to prove that, we had to shuttle it off and weigh it, every single thing, weigh it, get a weight of it so that we could document in our reporting, which is great. And I see the value in metrics, but it is an increased cost to the amount of time that those workers have to put into doing that instead of focusing on what they're building. And I know that's a remodel example, but that's just an example of a documentation requirement.
That's helpful. Thanks, Ann.
Yeah, thanks. That's good to know.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jerry. Good job.
Yeah, the contract, and put it on the agenda, I guess, for your next meeting to approve. For A&E, that's $1,070,691 to put together the construction plans for Jackson to do their numbers.
Andrew didn't even blink.
Yeah,
that is good.
Jerry, I remember a while back, a year ago, talking with you and Bryce about a plan A and a plan B, and I don't remember plan C if there's a global pandemic. So just want to applaud you for being able to respond to these crazy conditions.
Yes, I have to admit it did really throw us a curve there for a while, but I think the main thing is not to give up, is to keep moving forward, and that has proven out. Because like I said, I think there's a lot of excitement, and the things that I guess I pick up is our gardens, the butterfly house, our plant clinic are things that folks seem to identify and say, hey, they're important for Missoula, much more than actually being LEED certified.
Yes. Of course.
But I do believe that that's why I feel strongly as an educational organization, we should tie in some kind of educational effort with the facility.
Right. Jerry, have you still been in kind of regular contact with the Conservation District?
Yes, and they are part of this. Both them and the Butterfly House will be paying part of this. We've got a meeting this week to maybe line out a few details, but yes, that is still moving forward.
Excellent.
And we are moving, certainly communicate with Emily at the fairgrounds. She's getting into fundraising too, so it was important that we collaborate so we're not, I guess, stepping on each other's toes, so to speak. And so that's moving forward. We are ahead of them, but I think sharing what we know and helping her, I think this will work out well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything on the upcoming meetings and review of meetings?
I just have a quick random aside, this talk about LEED. Do we have a policy about county vehicles?
Energy efficiency or not texting while you're driving, or
there's a motor pool procurement policy for our rotating motor pool that states that there are certain criteria we look for when purchasing a car, and gas mileage is one of them. But that's certainly something we've talked about in the past. There's a lot of discussion points when it comes to motor pool, but we've really talked about having an electric vehicle or two at some point, because we have the plug-ins by the courthouse, and so far we don't have one. But I think that'd be pretty great.
Hopefully, I know because the Central Stores guys do an awful lot of local traveling, and an electric vehicle would make so much sense.
Yeah, we'll be actually working on that this year as kind of our overall motor pool. There's a lot of things we need to clean up in the motor pool, purchasing, how we bill it, how we pay for them, how we have overflow when it's full, but we need more, how we do our maintenance and all that. So I certainly feel like, our purchasing, and as we move towards greener vehicles, is certainly part of that as we kind of plan a strategy. And Diana's going to be involved in that part as well.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. Thanks.
I have one little meeting review thing I was just going to report on. We had a food policy board meeting yesterday, and we did this at the pavilion at Silver Park. And I think there were 10 people spread out across quite a large pavilion, so everybody had at least 6 feet, and it was very rewarding to do something face to face. So I want to encourage more people to make use of that space. It's free for a government meeting like this, free parking, and shaded and peaceful.
Hey, Josh, on that front, I've been thinking, what about doing something similar when we meet with Senator Daines in a couple weeks, rather than being buried in B14?
So much better, Dave. We have the time and date. We can get that reserved.
Sarah is wagging her finger at
us. Your finger.
Juan saying no.
The only way I could get that meeting to happen is to do it virtually, so Daines won't be able to be here in person. It's going to be virtual.
Okay.
And Tester, same deal with Tester. We're trying to get that one scheduled, but he is not doing in-person meetings at all, so it's going to have to be virtual.
Okay. Well, good try.
I tried.
I guess we could go out there and sit in the pavilion and watch them.
There you go.
I mean, I wonder if you guys are up for it. We might be able to try one admin meeting out there just to try it. It feels really different, and it's so much more enjoyable. And maybe because sometimes my social skills are a bit crippled, but it's so much easier to read people when you can see them wholly. And it's a really nice environment. So.
How many folks can we fit in the gazebo?
Well, I don't know. I mean, at the Silver Park thing, we had, I think it was 11, and it worked out great. So I guess the gazebos, I guess we're all coming from a distance, but I mean, I'm happy to chat with Annie and Emmy to see if people are down for we could try one if we see an admin meeting coming that's smaller.
Josh, did you have to pay for that reservation?
No. John DeBari made this reservation for us, and he said the city waived the fee because it was an intergovernmental thing.
That's good to know. Okay, because I was looking at it and it said there was a fee. So.
Yep, he brought that up yesterday and said that they joyfully waived the fee.
Okay. Good to know. Thanks.
Yeah. Are you guys up for trying something like that?
Yeah, I'd love it. I'm just the July and August kind of suck for me to get into town during the morning, but afternoon ones I can be at.
Anne is looking skeptical of this approach.
I don't want to be the turd in the punch bowl, but when we had talked about outdoor meetings, we had talked about different types of meetings that lend themselves to outdoor versus ones where we want to record them and when we need to include technology. And when you have multiple laptops set up next to each other to include virtual participation, there are some challenges presented with that. I know Jason Emery was kind of looking into that, so I don't want to be the naysayer on all meetings being outside, but we did talk about different types of meetings being maybe more suitable than others, just as a reminder.
Thanks.
What would be a type of meeting that would be conducive? One of our departmental meetings, or?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, like a CAPS update or something like that?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, we'll try. I'd love to try for some of those. Given that we might be in this for a while, and I really feel like the successful communication went up. The potential for successful communication was increased.
I feel you.
You're all invited up to my backyard.
That works well.
That looks good.
Okay, so we have COVID-19, fire, Yellowstone supervolcano, or sinkholes. Any updates?
Oh, there's 911 just came up. Okay.
Oh, good.
Do I look calm? We're calm. Everything's good. No.
Good.
Yeah, so just a couple updates. I think Dave was on the MAT call on Friday evening, so he's probably already heard this, but as we're working with the University of Montana and school resuming and starting to bring students back on campus, we are actively looking at how we can ensure that our non-congregate shelter plan that is approved by FEMA can incorporate the University of Montana and some of their unique student populations. Through a lot of back and forth with the state, it has been determined that the isolation and quarantine, the financial component of that, as well as the physical kind of doing of isolation and quarantine for individuals that may need it, is a county responsibility, that the university does not have the authority for that. So it becomes a financial responsibility with the county as well. And so we're working to ensure that what the plan that we come up with can align with what we expect to be able to recoup from FEMA. And additionally, along those lines, we did receive correspondence last week that once the emergency declaration, the national emergency declaration that enables FEMA funding for these types of activities, once that goes away, and it eventually will go away, that's something that we've always known, that there is a plan in place right now to transition non-congregate shelter activities from FEMA to HUD. And we don't exactly know what that looks like, but it's reassuring to hear that those conversations are happening at the federal level so that there would not be a gap in funding, because I think Ellen would reiterate this, is that even once the emergency nature of this pandemic is over, the need for non-congregate sheltering and the need for isolation and quarantine as a protective measure is going to remain for some time. So we're actively engaged in that, and we'll remain up to date on how we position ourselves for that eventual transition, and whether that continues to live within our office or it transitions to another entity that's more appropriately aligned with HUD. We'll determine that as that time comes. But that's some of the new things that we're working on. And so relative to the University of Montana, our current non-congregate shelter plan, we're operating under our next 30-day extension, so that will take us to August 11th. They start bringing students back right around that same time, and so we're working between then and now to get all of the components together so that we can just pull them under our umbrella for our approved plan. That will likely include some type of an agreement between the county and the university from a financial standpoint. Again, them holding facilities in reserve for an isolation and quarantine purpose is not without cost, and in the event that those are being utilized, would not be without costs either. And so at some point in the very near future, you'll probably have an agreement that we'll need to sign, and we'll have a lot more information for you at that time.
Adrian, do you have any idea when the FEMA reimbursements will be coming through?
No. You know, one of the things that Chris asked me to coordinate this week while he's out, so that we can do it probably next week, is to set up a meeting with Andrew, myself, and Dale from the city to talk through some of those funding gaps that may be there just from a cash flow perspective, and how we coordinate on that in anticipation of an eventual FEMA reimbursement sometime in the future. There are, I mean, I will say that there are some opportunities for what FEMA is calling expedited funding. They cause me a little bit of concern when I read the guidance in that you can ask for expedited funding, and maybe we get funding in the next 6 months, but it it lends yourself, it makes the county susceptible to an audit maybe 5 years down the road for a lot of documentation that might be hard to recreate. It's kind of easier to submit it as we go, but it's something that we can talk about next week, Andrew, if I'll have more information for you.
Yeah, it'd be great to talk about that. I wonder, yeah, it'd be great to hear more details to see if something like that is even possible.
Yeah.
Commissioners may remember that from the last fires, we waited over 18 months for reimbursement for FEMA.
Too, I'm wondering, when you said expedite, I wonder if there's a way to, if we knew what the documentation was going to be, if we could kind of collect it as we go, so when the time came, it wasn't such a hassle.
Yeah, you know, and what Andrew speaks to is something that obviously is concerning to me, in that 18-month period, we had to recreate or provide, as Andrew alluded to with the CARES funding, we had to go back and provide a detailed narrative of every single expenditure, and that is something that 5 years down the road may be difficult for us to do. And so that's my concern with that, is that once they start looking at the documentation, that then generates a lot of back and forth conversations. It's not that we wouldn't have the documentation, it's that providing the detailed explanation of exactly what we were doing at that given time may be difficult to recreate.
Is something like that possible to do in the moment? So if we started doing that now, we wouldn't have to do it 5 years from now?
We are currently doing that in the moment, Josh. So like everything that we expend goes into a pretty detailed FEMA workbook, and I will call it, it's an Excel workbook that has its pivot table, has all kinds of crazy stuff in there, where we provide all of that documentation. But oftentimes, no matter how much documentation we provide, how many invoices, how many proof of payments, there's always a lot of questions. So it's certainly worth discussing, and I don't know of any communities that have tried to do the accelerated funding, but we can dig in on it a little bit. It does cause me a little bit of concern, but it's something that we can look at. And again, I have no idea what to expect, whether that's expedited versus 18 months to 12 months or 3 months. I really don't know, but we'll get some more info.
It's tough to make a decision with so little information to work with.
And along those lines, you know, I alluded to this a little bit when we were talking about the testing facility. The FEMA guidance continues to change. I mean, and that's not entirely a dig on the federal agency. I mean, this pandemic is causing all of us to do things that we're just not accustomed to doing. And being that this is a public health emergency, there's a lot of kind of back and forth, I'll say, at the federal level, somewhat of finger pointing as to whose responsibility that particular activity may be, whether it's legitimately an emergency response covered under the public assistance programs funded by FEMA, or if it's more of a HHS CDC funding responsibility. And even guidance that was provided, 2 months ago is changing month to month. And so things that were eligible in the beginning are no longer eligible. They're being transitioned to different federal agencies. And so it's incredibly challenging to navigate, but that's one of the main things that we're working on right now.
Adrian, is there any value in us as we meet with Senators Tester and Daines to see if they could do any whip cracking, so to speak, with FEMA to truly expedite the process?
I mean, it certainly can't hurt, and I'm not downplaying their ability to leverage some pressure, but it's a national issue. Every community in the country is facing this, and FEMA is. I mean, I'm not saying they're ill-equipped. I mean, they're a powerful federal agency, but they've never experienced anything like this before either.
Yeah.
And I should mention, in just submitting the FEMA information to the state for the CARES Act, 25% reimbursement of the FEMA costs, we had to completely dissect some very detailed information that Adrian gave us and reformat it in the state's format so they could understand it. So it's a nightmare. I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, a lot of what Andrew's dealing with CARES is, my heart goes out to you, because that's what we deal with for all FEMA reimbursements, is that Oftentimes you have to provide the documentation in about 5 different ways, and sometimes it's conflicting with each other.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of who they have reviewing it. I mean, they have people who are reviewing it who that is not their full-time job. It's nothing that they have any kind of subject matter expertise into, and so you're really having to present it to who's ever reviewing it in a way that they can understand, and it's sometimes contrary to what we understand. So,
thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Adrian.
And then fire season, it's hot out there. It's dry. We continue to stay in high fire danger, but we are slowly inching up to that very high threshold where we'll tip over from an energy release component of our fuels. And so I expect that probably in the next 4 to 7 days, we will probably be in that very high category, which is the time when we typically ask the commissioners to sign an emergency proclamation relative to fire season, so that any emerging wildland fires will have the full authority for incident commanders to exercise whatever they need to bring that fire under control and protect citizens.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay.
Happy day.
Do we have anything else? So we're a couple minutes over.
On to the county attorneys.
All right, let's and that's going to be all full of good news, I'm sure. Okay.
Oh, it always is good news. Yes.
They're always telling us we can do whatever we want. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you, everyone. Bye.